welcome to Unit 5. This week we're going to start with our second part of the course. You've just finished up looking at eschatological views, and we've seen how our pre-understandings really shape interpretation of the biblical text. And now we want to move into looking at specifically at the Old Testament text. And one of the things that we have to bear in mind is that as Christians, one of our pre-understandings that shapes our entire interpretation for all of us of the Old Testament text is that Jesus, the Messiah, has already come in a first coming. And so we read the Old Testament in light of what were their expectations both for Jesus' initial coming and the second coming. Throughout the New Testament, it tells us about Jesus' first coming. For example, 1 Corinthians 15, Paul remarks that Jesus came just as the Scriptures had told, and that he was died, buried, and raised again the third day according to the Scriptures. And then even in Matthew and Luke, Jesus again talks about the fulfillment of the Scriptures, that his mission has been fulfillment of the Scriptures in Matthew 26. And then in Luke, while the disciples were mourning his death, after he is resurrected, he's walking with the disciples to Emmaus. And as he goes through there, Jesus talks to them, do you not understand what the Scriptures have predicted about the Messiah? That all this had to happen according to the Scriptures. And he walks them through, beginning with the law and the prophets, and tells them everything that the Scriptures had said concerning himself. And so in the New Testament, they were reading the Old Testament in light of what had happened in Jesus' life and ministry and death and resurrection. And so we also, as we turn to these Old Testament passages, we're going to walk following that same path. We'll start at the beginning. We'll talk about what is the concept of the Messiah and looking at the Old Testament. We're going to be using Groningen's book, Volume 1, be the focus for Unit 5. And then Unit 6, we'll look at the Messiah concept in the Old Testament law. And then Unit 8, we'll look at the concept of the Messiah and the former prophets. And then Unit 9, we'll look at the poetic books. And that first half of this second part of the course will lay the foundation for really looking at the latter prophets for the last 5 units of the course. So we look forward to it, and we get started with Unit 5.